Cool. Awesome. Perfect. All right, Jason. Good to meet you on stream. We've been chatting over Twitter for a couple years now. I think I've been wanting to get you on an interview, and I'm really glad to have you.
Good to be here.
Mm. So you just started a new venture with Scott, right? Do Not Peak Entertainment.
That is correct. We started it. I'm not sure when the official. I should actually go back and look and see when the official date. Like we had been working on it for a while, and it kind of started as a what if in some ways, and kind of exploring this studio space that they have here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it just kind of bloomed from there, and just kind of lots of back and forth, and then yeah, we've launched a company and kind of hope to create lots of great content whenever we can get back into the studio.
Are you guys doing anything in the interim with the current situation going on?
Yeah, we're doing currently we're doing just some YouTube videos, working on a lot of content around that, and then we just launched the second episode of Valoranting. Uh, that's airs tomorrow, which will be kind of a live debate show, just talking about Valorant and everything else that's going on in that scene with what the fuck Moses and Pansy and Scoots is tomorrow.
That's awesome. I haven't played it. I got the key. I have it downloaded. I haven't tried it yet. Are you enjoying the game?
I am, but I'm at this limitation right now because I know what I need to do to really enjoy the game. I'm not going to do it.
And what would that be?
Well, I mean, I need to five stack. I need to practice. I need to, I need to just work on all my learning all the map timings and all the grenades and smokes and arrows and all the stuff. Like I see the whole path of what I need to do,
Mm,
and I'm like, I don't have time to do that. I just don't. So I'm like, I'm done. Like
that's
I
yeah.
might jump on every once in a while and shoot. Like the gunplay is fun, so it's okay to run around and shoot people in the face, but I just don't have time to really play it.
That's why I haven't jumped in yet, is because I've been putting a lot of effort into learning League of Legends finally. Like I've been face rolling games, every now and then for years, but I've decided to kind of sit down and really commit to it. And I'm just now getting like the grips on the basics. So it's like getting into Valorant. Anytime I play competitively, I really want to be good at the game. So it's not something I see myself really getting deep down into right now. So I feel what you're talking about. Um, but so DNP, you know Scott. You've apparently known Scott for a long time. How far back do you guys go?
I met Scott in 2002, maybe a little bit earlier than that. My team MFA played his team UGP in Cal, Maine.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. But we got along really well. It was like a really close match on Nuke, and I don't. He didn't play, but we ended up chatting a little bit here and there right before that, and then we met at a CPL. My crew MFA VP, which was our video production, it was kind of a joke of like we just started filming. We're like, all right, we're MFA video production as well, so we'd go play a little bit at the CPL, and then we'd
Mm-hmm.
film. Uh, so one day we did an interview with Sir Scoots, and it was the best interview that we had. He was talking about his Do Not Peak bat, which is kind of where the name of the company Do Not Peak comes from. He was talking about his Do Not Peak bat, and we just had a really good time. And ever since then, Scott and I just had always got along. We just like I used to work on giant copier machines, so I would have to drive like 40 miles to go to some place, then 40 and he worked like event logistics, so
Mm-hmm.
he worked at an event and then he'd be off for a couple months. So we would just bullshit on the phone all the time while I was driving, and we just came up with plans like how to do stuff for broadcasting and stuff for Counter Strike back then. So yeah, we've been friends for a long time.
So is this like 2004 time frame?
Well, 2002 is when we first started
Okay.
talking. But 2003, 2004 is when we started really getting into, hey, what can we do with broadcast? What can we do to make Counter Strike better? What can we do? Um, just just change everything.
Right.
And
Did
it took lots of like live streaming back then was a pain in the
Oh
ass.
yeah.
So it cost lots and lots of money.
I think back then DJ Wheat was doing like just the shoutcasting kind of stuff, like the
Yes.
early days. Yeah. So back when people were using like Real Player to download audio only commentary of different games.
Yeah, a lot of times they were doing Winamp. So I worked
Mm,
for TSN. So I did MFAVP at the events, and then sometimes I would produce or be a color commentary for TSN, which is a Team Sportscast Network, which DJ worked for before he started IGN. Um, so yeah, we used to just do radio cast for a long time.
that's awesome. So you've been in the scene a long time. You guys are both broadcast nerds, and so it's kind of just fell into place, I guess, that you guys would start this. Like, what kicked off the idea to move forward with this venture?
Um, well, so I came out or trying to think of that's a tough one. Because it's a very long fucking story. But so I was doing some consulting for a company that was looking to build a studio.
Hmm.
They wanted to make sure that they could hire some of the right production people and get some of the right equipment, and they wanted to build a studio. And then Scott gets a call from a friend to check out this brand new studio that, or not brand new, it's a couple years old studio that's in Scottsdale, Arizona called Sneaky Big. He
Hmm.
checks that out and he calls me up and he's like, "You got to see the studio. It's amazing." He's like, "Well, that's funny because I'm consulting about a studio. I'd love to see it." So I actually went out there with the investor that was I was consulting with, and we saw the studio, and we're like, "Oh man, this thing has everything." So we just kind of slowly started working on, well, how can we partner up to do this, to use this studio, and it just kind of grew from there.
That's so you guys have the show. What's the weekly show that Scott was doing before all
The
this?
breakdown.
The breakdown. Okay, so you've got the breakdown. I saw the first episode of that. It was pretty exciting. To one, see Scott back on camera. Two, to see the kind of way you were doing the production. You know, the green screens and the different segments and all that. We don't have a lot of esports shows, and these Twitch shows have become really exciting and better over the years, especially if you compare them to like the really early days of Twitch. But this one seems to be, on that higher level of broadcast quality. What other like big things are you guys looking to put out as far as through the studio?
I'm not going to tell you. You're gonna have to wait and see. You really have to wait and see. I have a list of like 30 shows that I want. So we'll see which one happens next. And this kind of lockdown has kind of really slowed things up.
Yeah.
But we really did debate, like, do we want to do a web show? Because like anybody can do a web show. It's
Hmm.
fucking easy. It really is. 4 boxes, get some talking heads, and you go. And it's not bad. It's like, I mean, I enjoy it. I
Hmm.
watch tons of them, but it's like we want to do something else. We want to do something a little bit better. So we kind of debated about it, but we finally were like, yeah, let's go ahead and just do it. Let's do this one on Valorant, and we'll probably do put a little bit more of our spin on it as well. Like, I mean, it's going to have B-roll and it's going to have graphics. It's just what we do. We're production people, so we want to add to the show. So
Yeah.
it's not just going to be 4 talking heads, and try to be just a little bit more interesting.
I've always found that the new title rush, like the gold rush that kind of happens for getting the de facto podcast, right? Like back in what was the early StarCraft one that DJ Wheat did? State of the Game, was
Uh,
that?
s- State of the game. I hate StarCraft. I hate to tell you this, but
Oh no.
I did watch a lot of those shows though. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the name. Was it
Yeah, so there
Pushing
were,
10?
but there was State
Yeah.
of the Game, and then there was the Live on 3. I don't know if that was ever an explicitly StarCraft one. I know there were a lot of StarCraft episodes, because DJ Wheat was a big part of that community and all that, and then In Control and a few other big names would always go on it. But yeah, so there were those. So that's how I came into the esports scene, was through running a talk show. I did one called The Late Game, and after that, though, when Overwatch came out, I remember there being a rush, and I was part of it, where a bunch of different shows suddenly get announced. Everyone has a pun name based on the game that they're going to be talking about, and then it's that same thing, the panel show, and it's which one will stick, which one will have lasting power, which one's getting all the the right people to come on and talk about the game, things like that, and it just happens after everything, and I find it very interesting to watch. It's much less stressful when you're not trying to actually be a part of that, but it is
Yeah,
interesting.
I think it's fun. I mean, there is the rush is fun because partly is just seeing new talent and seeing people from different games come over. I know Slasher kind of tweeted like this little slap at it, but like I love seeing it. I love like there's tons of people that love more than one style of game. So
Hmm.
like I welcome all the talent to come over and see what they can do. Doing a panel show or a weekly show is hard though. It's not coming up with a new idea every week and make things interesting. I mean, you'd look at even there's people that do Overwatch content and they do a video every day or a video every week about Overwatch. And there's hardly ever news about
Right.
Overwatch. It's like, how are they fucking doing that? It just takes a lots of determination to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
because
so
you yeah.
yeah, you're gonna see lots and lots of people pop up, and you'll see people just kind of fall by the wayside because they're not either getting the attention that they want, or they're gonna find something else that they're interested in. And it's like we like this game. I mean,
Hmm.
Scott and I like this game, and really pretty much a lot of us as a company enjoy playing it what little bit we've played, and we like watching the tournaments. I have a feeling the game's going to be around for a while, so we're like, well, let's invest in this game. Let's put some content out there and let's pay attention to it. So, I mean, we'd love Counter Strike, but there's not really room for another Counter Strike show. And
No,
there's
no.
I have an idea for a Counter Strike show I'd like to do, but unless we're in the studio, we're not doing it. So what's the point? So um, we're gonna right now. Just this Valorant show seems like it's the right time, the right place, and it seems like the people that we like to work with in the FPS world are the people that have come from multiple games.
Hmm.
And like when we did our first show, we had, Mr. X on the show, and he's been Call of Duty and Halo and now Overwatch, and he plays lots of WoW. It's like, somebody like that, it's like they understand a ton. Pansy I mean, she has casted so many great games, and she's
Hmm.
played at a high level in Call of Duty, and she's done Return to Castle Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. If you could do that game, you can do any game.
I've never
And
actually played that game.
you should play it. I mean, it's pretty much what you think of games like Valorant and Overwatch, where you have these abilities that you level up and that you have these ultimates. That was what, 2002,
Oh, wow.
2001. Yeah, so I mean that you just had these abilities that you could take over a match with. And you had resurrection, and you had a medic, and like those games were fun. So
Was this a PC or Xbox Live game?
PC,
Okay.
I've never played a game on the
Oh,
Xbox.
damn. Yeah, I think the only I played a few, and it was like Halo, Ghost Recon, just a few, and then yeah, I became a WoW player, and I haven't really touched a console since.
Yeah, I've lost like way too much of my life into WoW. So.
Did you play Classic when it came out?
I did, but the server I joined up with a lot of the ex MLG guys, and the server we were on was so full that it's like, oh, I got like 3 hours I can play, and then I'm sitting in queue for an hour and a half, and then I'm so pissed off that I don't even want to
Ugh.
play. So I was done. So I think I'm like level 5.
Yeah, I joined the other streamers and went to Fairlena, and that was the same thing. Nightmare, waiting all the time. I started for a while. I had the Chrome extension that allows you to remote desktop to your computer through your phone,
Hmm.
and I would log on like an hour before I was going to go home, and then let it run through the queue, and hopefully it wouldn't. But then you'd have to keep checking it, make sure it didn't actually pop early, because if it did, then you had like what
Yeah.
5 minutes before it was going to boot you or something. Yeah, that was a rough time. I haven't played it really since, but yeah, that's a pain. But Going back to the shows, it is a grind, like in these early phases of the game, because there isn't a ton to talk about. You don't have an established pro scene, which with a lot of other esports shows you're talking about rosters, you're talking about recent events, etc. No events are happening at all except some online tournaments. We're seeing some things come out of the woodwork. You'll get players that are going from one game to another. You could talk about that. Same thing with like commentators and other talent personalities. But it does, at least when I tried to start an Overwatch show, it feels like a grind once you get past the once all you have left to talk about are speculations, because there's nothing hard or concrete to really uh, discuss.
Yeah, I think there's always room to talk about, the theory crafting side of the game. There's always ways to talk about maps. Um, Being that this is so much like Counter Strike, you can always just go back and compare something to Counter
Mm-hmm.
Strike. Then that's one of the nice things to me is like there's so many ex Counter Strike players talking that are doing this game. You can always do an interview with one of those guys. Yeah, I think there's plenty. We'll see what happens. I got a feeling that the rate is going to be over the next month. You're going to see way more people join the beta. They'll probably do a full open beta, and then they said by summer. So I mean, like summer's here. So within the next two to 3 months, you're going to have this game released, and there'll be plenty to talk about then.
Absolutely. So what? How'd you get into esport? Well, let's go way back. Have you always been in broadcasting?
No, no, I went to school for electronics and like I said, I used to fix the giant copier machines that were in print shops and specialty press stuff.
Okay. How did you get from that to broadcasting and broadcasting to esports?
No, I went to esports and then got into broadcasting.
Okay. Okay.
So, it kind of started. I read an article in PC Gamer about Thresh playing Quake One at a tournament, and I was like, oh my gosh, you can compete in that. And I was a kind of a competitive guy. Played hockey, and I played. I was a short guy, but I liked playing sports, and um, I was like, fuck, let's. Getting all the guys that we used to have a LAN parties with, four to five people. It's like, hey, let's start playing, and we used to play. Unreal, the original Unreal
Mm-hmm.
for Unreal Tournament, and Quake, and we used to play Duke Nukem and Half-Life when that came out. Half-Life Deathmatch was a really big deal for us. We had a lot of time, great time playing that one. And then Counter-Strike. Like one day I brought over like 4 mods on a CD, and I brought this. The only two I can remember is I brought Science and Industry was one, which is still a really cool game, and one called Counter-Strike. And some of the guys didn't like Counter-Strike, but man, I fell in love with it. And it was like beta one, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like and as soon as I got a DSL connection, so I had actual 70 ping to a server, I was like, that was it. Like I played nonstop. My brother as well, and so we were just playing and started looking for local lands, and I met up with some guys that would run like a 120 player LAN tournament um, about once a month. And so I started hanging out with those guys, and they asked me, "Hey, we're going to go to this event called the CPL. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got some free vacation. I'll go." So we went to it, and that was pretty much it for me. Actually, just watching. That's like when that was like not the debut, but like the biggest chunk of HLTV coming out, which was like being able to spectate Counter Strike
Mm-hmm.
because Counter Strike came out the summer before, but this was like in December, and it was just watching the high level of Counter Strike at that time. It was just amazing. Like when I logged in to play on the LAN, there a guy comes around the corner and shoots five of us in the head with a USP, and I'm like, we were a number one OGL team. We were like one of the best teams in our region, and we walk in and we can't even do anything on the public server at the CPL. Like I mean, just they would just destroy you. And so I just really started getting into wanting to compete. And Mark and John, two of the guys that we were with, brought a camera and they filmed some stuff, and we started like editing it. They edited that up, and we started making some stuff with that video. And the next time we go back to CPL, we start adding gameplay footage stuff. and they start like asking me, "Hey, Jason, who should we film or who should we interview?" And I just end up just start producing their videos while I'm still playing in the tournament.
So you mentioned earlier that you played against Scott's team. Did you mean like a team that Scott was working with or part of, like from an
No,
administrative point, or was he competing?
no, Scott played for UGP. I actually shoutcasted a game that he played at the CPL one time, but he was playing for UGP for years, like from Beta One.
I had no
Uh,
idea.
yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
so you get to you catch the esports bug. You get doing that. You start doing like the video thing. When did it become that you were working these events, like from the overall event perspective?
it's so it's kind of funny. So the four of us that went down to that first CPL, Mark and John started filming. I was running the MFA team and bringing the team to the events. And then a guy named Mike started working as an admin for the CPL. And within a couple years, it was like I would go to the CPL and I would set up all the computers with them. I'd set up, help get all the stuff wired up. I would rank all the teams because they would set up all this parameter for the teams. I would do all the seeds for the teams at the CPL. Then I'd play in it, and then I'd produce video. And sometimes then I would also shoutcast as well. So it was like it just kind of happened. That was my hobby, and that's all I did. Every free moment I had was to do something with Counter Strike, and
That's
really not just Counter Strike because I was playing other games as well, but that was like my big one.
so when you let's jump forward now and go to E League. You were the original. Were you the broadcast or the production lead or the director?
I was the producer for E League.
Okay. So how did you wind up working with them?
It was so I actually had kind of left esports for a little bit because just there was really no money to be made, and I had family that I needed to help take care of, and I had a house and I had bills to pay, so I had left, but I was freelancing and doing system admin work, and I get asked to go. ESL was doing a World of Warcraft PvP event, and I got asked to produce that. So I'm at that event. While I'm at that event, I get a phone call from MLG saying, "Hey, we're going to do Counter Strike, and we're trying to get a major. We want you to come and direct the observing." So then I joined them for that whole series. So I did the MLG major and all the qualifiers and stuff for that.
That was Columbus, wasn't it?
Yes, I did that one. Yep. And then while I was at that event, then I get contacted by E League saying, "Hey, we're looking to do some Counter Strike broadcast, and we want you in, or we want you to come and help us out on that." And yeah, that was just a whole nother level of production there.
That was first of all, I want to say that Columbus was one of the best events. I think even in the CS:GO community, it's considered one of the greatest majors, right? And
Yeah, I agree. I think Ryan and Adam and the whole team there just did just amazing job.
yep, I had a blast. Absolutely. I think that was also my only pure Counter Strike event. Like I've been to other events like DreamHack where there was a StarCraft happening and Counter Strike, but I think that was my first time ever just seeing a CS:GO match. Or so I stayed for the entire thing, watched all of it. Absolutely incredible. Like emotionally exhausting at the end. When you leave it, it's one thing to work an event and be tired from having to being on camera, running around and working, but a different kind of tired when you've watched some incredible, insane, whether it's StarCraft, CS:GO, things like that. And that weekend, I was definitely intense. I loved it. So you guys did a great job there. Uh,
Thank you.
so you worked with E League. E League was really exciting for the CS:GO scene for a lot of people. You have this professional, weekly, regularly occurring broadcast and tournament, right? This nice infrastructure. Tell me what it was like working being a part of that and working for that organization.
It was so I joined 2 weeks before it started. Like they didn't even have everything's built for the studio yet. It was very tough because I was the only esports guy. So nobody else understood knew what esports was. Like they had commercial breaks set for after the fourth round of the game, and like um so here's let me kind of explain this.
Hmm.
If I went to a production meeting, because I did go to a lot of the inside the NBA production meetings and some of the baseball one production meetings and watch the full broadcast. If you're sitting around your pre-show and you're sitting there talking about what you want to do, and you go, "Oh, well, George has struck out 4 times in the last 4 times he's played at a dome stadium. Can we get some footage of that?" Everybody in the room understands what they're talking about. If I say JDM keeps missing his op shots, I need a montage of JDM missing his op shots. They don't know what an op is. They don't know who JDM is. They don't know how to get the footage. Like it's it's like starting from zero. So I had to do lots and lots of hand holding. And they did lots of hand holding with me too. Like it's not just
Yeah, yeah.
that way. I would say like I taught them esports. They taught me real production. Um, and it's not like everything we did there was unique. It was just dealing with this machine. Like in the old days, if you wanted a graphic, if it wasn't made before the show, it wasn't made.
Hmm.
Where at E League, I'm calling graphics constantly throughout the show. I mean, Counter Strike, it's every minute 30, you got a replay, a graphic, a reaction shot. I mean, it's constantly like from a production standpoint, it's like a football game. It's just constant. The play happens, you do your replay or you do your stat summary, you do your little recap, and then you go, and it's just nonstop for sometimes 12 hours every day.
Do you think
Um,
that it was comparable to football? Would you say that Counter Strike was actually harder than most other sports to kind of run that type of ship?
I mean, to me, it's like football. I mean, just goes to the hardest part is that I ended up hiring Helium, who was a shoutcaster, to do my production for the replay team because it was just too slow. I couldn't get what I needed fast enough. I needed somebody to realize that that was a good play and that was a good play. And sometimes I would call in replays, but you can't call in all of them.
Hmm.
Or like, hey, give me this, you know, give me that shot with a liege 3K, and well, so I could get a 3K from a liege and then a reaction of a liege because he knew what a liege looked like. Where the other guys were just it just took a while.
Hmm.
By the end, though, like by the time we did the major, we were firing on all cylinders. Like it was really just top level. Like all those guys really got it and they understood it.
So where did you? Where I know that you were. I'm sorry, I'm being attacked by a cat.
That's
Um,
okay.
I I know that you were with them for 2 seasons, I think.
Probably longer than that. So I mean, I was a contract. I was just a freelancer.
Hmm.
So, I did the first season. I did the second season. I did the major. And then I think they did like the premiere. So I did the first of the premiere season. I think they did the Clash for Cash as well. So I did those. I left right before the finals of the premiere season. Like whatever, like the fucking name changing was the dumbest thing that happened. What happens is like when you launch a show, you get everybody's involved,
Hmm.
and then as this next second season, you like your resources just shrink, and then they shrink and they shrink because they just try to expect it just to go on its own.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, I don't know who got involved where they were like, "Oh, well, let's go ahead and call this the premiere season, not season 3." I don't fucking know. So I couldn't tell you when it was, but we did like a season 3. What in my mind we did Class for Cash, which is a show match. We also did like something at CES, and we did some other shows as well. Because they did E League Extra, which is what they put on TBS, which was just a talk show.
Hmm.
I did those as well. Um, but yeah, I left right before the playoffs because I got offered a job at the Overwatch League. So um, they, you know, E League wasn't very good at saying, "Hey, this is our plans for the year." It
Hmm.
was, "Yeah, we think this is going to happen." Because what happened it was when we did Clash for Cash, I was promised a 10-week season or a 10-week, event again, and it was like, oh, we're going to cut it down to 6 weeks. No, we're going to just do a 1 day show.
That's a
And
lot of that's a huge change.
that's not only is that a huge change, I had already turned down gigs. I had turned down lots of gigs and I had no work and I had this 10-week window. So I actually started reaching out to the people at the Overwatch League and I ended up doing some of the World Cup stuff for them.
How was it
So when I
working?
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So like I did that and then I couldn't get E League to even confirm to me that they got the next major when they got that next major.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there trying to plan out the rest of my year, and I can't get anybody to look me in the eye and say, yes, we got the major, and that means you're going to have X amount of time worth of X amount of work left of this year. So I was just like, well, I got this offer and it's for a full-time job or it's a 1 year contract. I'm just going to take this 1 year contract instead. Um, so that's what I did,
So that seems
which
to
is the
be.
right move because
Oh
then
yeah.
E-League stopped doing Counter-Strike.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and I doubt that you would have had trouble, moving into another esport and being just as effective. But still, it seems that a big issue with esports that is yet to really be fixed is getting things confirmed at a time that makes it easy for people to plan their lives and their careers. Because a lot of these people are doing contract work. They're not, W-2 employees that are permanently on the payroll, right? Especially with a game like CS:GO that gets events managed by ESL, Valve themselves, and a few others. That's a lot of uncertainty and unknown. And did you see anyone else at your time at E-League? Did you see anyone else from a different show, a different sport, kind of having to deal with the same unknowns? I can't imagine that when they have a pretty much guaranteed schedule, right?
Yeah, I mean it's different because a lot of those guys are like guaranteed, or they have like different production guys that would work multiple shows. So they'd work our show and then they'd work inside the NBA and they would work. So they're constantly busy, but almost all of them were contractors and freelancers at of some sort. So there was like, they know baseball is going to happen. I mean, right now a lot of those guys are all out of
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
so it's the same thing. So that, but like they would have a little bit more planning than what we do on the esports side.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you work with E League, you get those seasons under your belt, you become a much more seasoned and polished broadcast professional, and then you go to Overwatch League. What was it like working for Blizzard's version of something like the LCS?
Um, it was all right. I mean, I have some good memories and I have some bad memories. I would say one of the things that I did not know until after I was working there was that I worked for Team 4, which is the developers
Yep,
for Overwatch. I was under the assumption that I worked for the broadcast division for Overwatch League,
the
that
Overwatch dev
th-
team.
not that any Overwatch dev's opinion outweighs everything, even common sense.
So wait,
You
did you
know,
have like devs coming to you and saying, "All right, so we saw this broadcast and you did this or you did
no, no,
that"?
no, 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 no. During the broadcast, I would get messages that would say, "Do this or do less of that. Show me this in third person." Well, I know that this third person thing is broke, but the developer added this whole third person smart tracking thing that he wanted to show off, so he wanted me to do it on stream, and I had to do it.
Oh, damn. Do you ever try to get that resolved? Like, try to, hey,
I,
guys,
I
and
well,
if you
I
can't talk about it, I understand.
yes, but there's also a reason why they probably didn't hire me back because I tried to explain to them why it was wrong to do things. Um, it was they wanted me to do things very slow. They wanted things very methodical. They wanted way more free cam than I was comfortable doing. They like, especially in the first season or the first stage, which was fucking hell for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they wanted lots of free cam, but it was a Genji tracer heavy meta. So, which is all first person, like you can't tell what's going on unless you're watching what those people are doing.
Yep.
Um, but then you're constantly getting yelled at. Well, you need to be at free cam. And then plus, while I'm doing that, I'm training my team. I'm training the team of observers to react to the game correctly. Like when, all right, as soon as this happens, all right, the attacking team's going to lose here. Here, switch all these cameras here to catch up the cleanup kills that don't fucking matter, but the fans want to see anyway, and then reset to this position so I always have coverage. Um, it takes way more practice and way more communication than you'd think to get everybody on the same page. Because I didn't get to hire my crew. The only person I recommended was a guy named Imagine Daniel, who I actually also hired for Do Not Peak. So that's just how much I thought of him as an observer. He kind of invented how the free cam system works in that game.
That was a big thing that a lot of us were talking about before Overwatch really came out as an esport, like during the alpha days, was how is this going to be enjoyable to watch? There's a lot of stuff happening, and something I never really considered was the idea that the meta, behind it, because in sports, there might be. I've always wondered, like, if you really consider there to be a meta in something like football, but there's nothing like where you're dealing with a completely different type of character that operates in a way that makes you have to change the way you move.
Yeah, I mean, from the whole production team, you would change it, and eventually we started. It would take us like maybe one broadcast to to understand the best way to cover it. Like we would understand what was happening, but it was
Mm-hmm.
like trying to figure out the best way to get everybody all to react at the same time to what's going to happen. Then the lucky for me is they had the goats meta came out right before World Cup happened, and I ended up having to work with three guys that didn't even barely spoke English, and we were able to do it no problem because it was so easy. It was like you could just do it in your sleep, and then that whole second season, they end up doing that whole meta for probably 6 months or something like that. So they
Damn.
really lucked out. As
So
far as the production side, it was easy.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, you worked for them. Was it end of Overwatch? Is then you had a hiatus, and then you and Scott started DNP?
No, I did Blast Pro.
Okay.
So I did 3 or 4 Blast Pro broadcasts. I did Brazil, Miami, Spain, Portugal. I don't remember. I did at least 3 events with them. I had the whole time was just trying to talk them into doing what they're currently doing now, and I had actually wrote up a bunch of stuff for them that I think that they're following. When I watch the show, it seems like they're following my playbooks, which isn't much different than what we did at E League, as far as getting in and out of the game and
Mm-hmm.
showing highlights and stuff. They don't have good graphic shit, but other than that, their replays are amazing and actually have a good system going.
Was it nice getting back to CS:GO after spending time with Overwatch?
Um, yeah, I mean, I was dying to do Counter Strike again, and it's my favorite game still. It's my favorite game to watch. Just Blast was doing Counter Strike on the whole hard mode because you're doing 3 streams at once,
Mm-hmm.
or 4 streams because you're doing one in venue as well. So sometimes you would have a local language caster doing something in venue, and then you would have 3 other streams going on. And sometimes you would have camera people that didn't speak English, and it was nerve wracking. Um, so while I was happy to be back to Counter Strike, and I loved all the people I worked with at Blast. That 3 streams at once thing was just an absolute fucking nightmare.
I remember catching a few of the Blast events, but I can imagine that managing that, having to direct that's basically like 3 different TV shows at once, right? Like you're doing different throws, different graphics, different thirds coming up.
Yeah, I mean, luckily there wasn't tons of stuff on these other 2 streams as far as graphics and production value, but you still had to pay attention if there was a timeout, and you had to, throw 2 or 3 different talent all at once when you start the game. There's just lots of problems that can happen in Counter Strike anyway on just one game, let alone 3 at the same time, and just
Oh,
dealing with
absolutely.
that. while trying to call replays and call packages and such for, when you got, you know, it's like in professional sports, when you think of the desk segment, that's ran by an entire production team. And then the live component is ran by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like running everything by yourself is a lot of work, and it just is. It can be a pain when there's that many. I think it's exhausting at times.
God, I can imagine. I mean, but hey, that's a testament to you as a production lead, right? Or would you say producer? With the does that?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was a producer. Yeah.
Okay. All right. The more I've learned about like film and television, understanding what a producer means seems to be very varied. And a lot of different people doing a lot of different things can still carry the title of producer.
Yeah, I fucking hate it as a title. It is like so a producer for a live event like a Counter Strike event or like I think E League or Blast or something. You would lay out the full run of show. So everything from the opening video that comes on to when the commercial breaks are, to what graphic packages you want, what video packages you would want, and you would lay this all out on the sheet, and you'd meet with your talent and work with them for prepping for the whole show. And during the whole show, you're sitting there going, I need 2 more minutes. And so you're getting them to ask another question, or I got a replay here, or I got this stat, or just simple talk about simple. Is you have them talk about simple, and then you bring up graphics and stuff
Mm-hmm.
that support what they're talking about. And then the director's the one that will go and say something like, ready camera one, start moving and take one, and like he's making everything visual look great, but like as a producer, you're trying to line up the next thing the director is going to call, and a lot of times the director's sitting there going, "What's like?" He's waiting for that next thing that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to tell him to do. Of like, all right, get back in game, like because Counter Strike, of course, they didn't know the game, so you had to tell them when they can get in the game and whenever it's okay to get out of the game. And that little delay slowly starts going away the more games you do. By the time of the major, I didn't have to sit there. Very rarely did I need to say, "Hang on, hang on, hang on," but like, yes, because it's like, oh, he's not going to get this diffuse, So it's fun, but that's the two job titles or the two kind of production things. People don't always understand it.
Yeah, it definitely the director is what I kept wanting to say because I'm thinking of that person who's saying, get ready to go to this camera, get ready to do that. I've been on a few bridges for one of my side jobs and listened to a lot of those conversations. So it was really interesting when I got into esports and actually got to sit on a desk and hear them talk to me like, hey, we need you to stall for 2 more minutes or this and that. A lot going behind the scenes that people don't see.
Yep, we juggle a lot.
Yeah. Well, buddy, hey, I know you got to get out of here. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat. It was good talking to you. If you guys want to find Mr. Baker, you can find him on Twitter at Alchemister5. Also working with Do Not Peak Entertainment, or I guess is this like a co-venture between you and Scott?
Scott and I in an investment company.
Okay, cool,
So,
awesome. Will you have anything you want to shout out before we head off?
check out Valoranting tomorrow at 11 o'clock Pacific time. I think it's about an hour and a half, 2 hour show, and hopefully it should be on every week on Tuesday.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, sir, for coming on. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, thanks for having me. Bye.